We live in a generation that has never experienced so much noise, not just audible noise, but an emotional, mental, and spiritual noise that fills every space. There are notifications vibrating in our pockets, voices disputing opinions, news updating every second, stimuli demanding immediate attention, constant pressure to respond, react, give an opinion, and exist in motion. It is as if silence has become a foreign territory, almost forbidden, strange to our daily lives. And in this accelerated scenario, the human soul grows weary. The heart becomes heavy. The mind is fragmented. The spirit loses sensitivity. Because human beings were not created to live immersed in noise, but to find rest in the presence of God. And God's presence often speaks in silence. The Bible presents countless moments when God chooses to reveal himself, not through thunder, but through the subtle. In the book of 1 Kings, chapter 19, verses 11 and 12, when Elijah sought to hear the voice of the Lord, first came a strong wind, then an earthquake, then a fire. But God was not in any of them. God's voice came later, in a soft, quiet whisper. This passage is profound because it confronts our modern expectation. We expect God to speak in the noise, in the extraordinary, in the spectacle. But the biblical text reminds us that the eternal whispers. He speaks where the heart is quiet. He reveals himself when the soul slows down. Silence is not absence, but space for listening. It is in silence that the divine voice gains clarity. The modern world fears silence because there is no distraction in it. And where there is no distraction, there is confrontation. In silence, a person has to deal with what they feel, what they think, what they hide. That is why society has become accustomed to filling voids with constant stimulation. But heaven works contrary to digital algorithms. Heaven works at the pace of eternity, not haste. Heaven needs space to be heard. God speaks, but few listen, not because he is silent, but because we are too busy to pause. Psalm chapter 46 verse 10 declares, "Be still and know that I am God." It is not a suggestion, it is an invitation and a spiritual command. To be still is to recognize God's place. To be still is to understand that there is a Lord who cares, governs, and sustains. Restlessness is born when we think everything depends on us. Silence re-educates us. It trains us to trust. It diminishes the noise of our anxiety and amplifies the voice of faith. In silence, we learn that we do not need to have immediate answers because we serve a God who is not in crisis. The world can shout, but the throne remains firm. It is interesting to note that Jesus, even surrounded by crowds, sought silence. He healed, preached, taught, embraced, confronted, and comforted, but always withdrew to pray. The Gospel of Luke chapter 5 verse 16 records that he withdrew himself into the wilderness and prayed. He did this repeatedly. Even being the Son of God, he understood that silence was a place of restoration. Jesus sought the wilderness, not as a symbol of abandonment, but as an environment for communion. If Christ himself, who was without sin, needed silence to align his heart with the Father, how much more do we, fragile, scattered, sensitive to the world's noise, need this sacred space? Silence is not a waste of time. It is an investment. It is rest for the soul. It is spiritual breathing. When we are silent before God, our thoughts organize, our emotions quiet down, our spirit aligns. Silence is not emptiness, it is an encounter. There, peace replaces haste, clarity overcomes chaos, wisdom makes itself heard. But for this to happen, we need to relearn how to turn off the noise. We need to close doors. We need to pause. We need to relearn how to be with God without rush. The world's noise convinces us that value is in producing, answering, generating results, appearing, doing something all the time. But silence reminds us that our identity is not in what we do, but in who the Father says we are. Silence breaks the flow of performance. Silence recenters us on the love of God. In silence, we stop being machines of productivity and return to being children. There is a profound text in the book of Psalms, chapter 62, verse 1, which says, "Truly my soul waiteth upon God. From him cometh my salvation." The soul does not rest in noise, nor in speed, nor in human expectation. The soul finds rest when it returns to the place of origin, the heart of the Creator. This means that silence is not simply the absence of sound, but the presence of God. Silence is not inactivity, but devotion. Silence is not emptiness, it is fullness. The world tries to convince us that life happens outside, where things happen quickly, where there are lights, noise, movement. The Bible shows us that life also flourishes inwardly, where no one sees, where the root grows, where character is formed, where faith is strengthened. The greatest spiritual transformations do not always happen in crowded temples, but in closed rooms. Jesus teaches in Matthew chapter 6, verse 6, that when we pray, we should enter the closet and shut the door. Closing the door is literal, but it is also symbolic. Closing the door is silencing the world to make space for God. And perhaps this is the most urgent challenge for this generation: learning to close doors. Closing the door to information overload. Closing the door to internal noise. Closing the door to haste. Closing the door to the fear of being alone with one's own thoughts. Silence requires courage. It requires intention. It requires practice. But when we learn to enter the silence, we find a God who was already there, waiting. Silence leads us to hear not only the voice of God, but also the truth about ourselves. When the noise ceases, when the schedule slows down, when notifications fall silent, the soul speaks. It exposes wounds we have hidden for years, reveals fears we have masked with laughter, shows weariness we ignored while running directionlessly. Silence shows us what is truly inside us. That is why many avoid it. But silence is also the place where God heals, restores, and reorganizes a broken heart. Silence is the soul's operating table, where the spirit operates without anesthesia, but with love. He exposes to transform. He reveals to heal. He illuminates to set free. There is a moment in life when the noise becomes unbearable, not because it is loud, but because it is constant. It is not just about external sounds, but internal restlessness. Thoughts that do not stop. Worries that multiply. Demands that accumulate like never-ending waves. When this happens, we do not need more movement. We need silence. Jesus knew this deeply. On several occasions, he left the crowds to be alone with the Father. Not because he rejected people, but because he knew he could only give if he was full. He could only heal if he was whole. He could only speak with authority if he had heard the Father first. Silence is the place where we are replenished. Whoever tries to live without spiritual silence becomes someone who speaks much, but communicates little, does much, but transforms little, lives much, but gets lost along the way. The prophet Isaiah wrote something deeply connected to this in chapter 30, verse 15. "In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength." Spiritual strength is not born of noise, but of rest. It is not born of haste, but of surrender. It is not born of self-sufficiency, but of dependence. The more we try to control everything, the more we wear ourselves out. The more we try to carry the world on our shoulders, the heavier we become. Silence before God is the act of placing our burdens at the Creator's feet and simply breathing. It is the act of saying, "I don't need to win everything alone because the Lord fights for me." In the book of Exodus chapter 14, verse 14, it is written, "The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace." Silence is also a weapon. It is confidence in the form of rest. It is when we stop talking, arguing, trying to control, that God steps in. The spiritual life is a garden that only flourishes when watered with silence, prayer, and the word. Noise dries up the root. It distracts us from the essential. We even pray, but our mind remains accelerated. We even read the Bible, but without listening to what it says. We even go to church, but our heart is absent. Silence restores presence. It restores our full attention. It teaches us to be where we are, to truly listen, to see what was previously overlooked. When we silence ourselves before God, We begin to notice what he has always been doing. We begin to perceive details we previously ignored. We begin to feel the moving of the Spirit in the simple, the small, the discreet. Silence is also fundamental for healthy human relationships. Many conflicts arise not from a lack of words, but from an excess of them. We speak to reply, not to understand. We listen more with the ears of pride than with the ears of love. The absence of silence hinders dialogue, hinders forgiveness, hinders reconciliation. Biblical wisdom reminds us in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 28, "Even a fool, when he holdeth his peace, is counted wise." Silence is maturity. It is a bridge to understanding. It protects us from impulsive responses and hasty judgments. It helps us to reflect before reacting, to discern before speaking, to love before confronting. Silence is an ally of peace. Perhaps God is calling this generation back to the secret chamber. He is saying, disconnect, enter, sit down, stay. Because in silence, he reveals to us who he is, but also reveals who we are in him. We are children. We are loved. We are cared for. We are guided. However, to hear this truth, we need to silence the noise that tries to define our identity by performance, appearance, results. In silence, we remember that we are more than numbers, more than titles, more than speed. We are eternal. There are moments when the Holy Spirit whispers, but the world shouts. There are moments when God's will is gentle as a breeze, but fear is like a storm. Silence is the lens that adjusts our vision. It makes us see the difference between what is urgent and what is important, between what is noisy and what is eternal. Silence is the way to hear the voice that truly matters, the Father's voice. And so we continue walking, conscious that silence is not emptiness but fullness. It is the place where heaven touches earth, where eternity touches time, where the human meets the divine. It is both a resting place and a starting point. It is healing and also direction. Whoever learns to be silent before God never returns the same. They leave lighter, wiser, more whole. And when we finally understand that it is not the world that needs to be silent for us to hear God, but ourselves, something within us reorganizes. The silence that once seemed empty becomes a dwelling, a refuge, a rest. We discover that the answers we sought in voices, on screens, in debates, and in the excess of stimuli were already being whispered to our spirit, but the noise around was so loud that the message did not arrive. God has always spoken. We just did not stop to listen. In the noise, he is just a distant echo. In silence, he becomes a living presence. The deepest prayer is sometimes not made of words, but of surrender. A quiet heart hears more than a full mouth. But this kind of silence is not born without effort. It requires practice. It requires renunciation. It requires courage. Because silence also reveals us, and that is frightening. There we find our hidden fears, our insecurities muffled by the noise of daily life, our wounds we never had time to face. Silence confronts. It removes masks, tears down illusions, exposes what we have avoided for years. Perhaps that is why many flee from it. But the same silence that confronts heals. It is there that God operates in depth, without distractions. He touches where it hurts, not to punish, but to restore. And every wound treated there transforms into maturity. Then something powerful happens. The world remains noisy as ever, but inside us, another atmosphere is born. A place of rest that no one can take away. An invisible temple where only God has a voice. And from this temple springs clarity, discernment, balance. Whoever learns to listen in secret is not desperate in public. Whoever recognizes God's voice in silence is not swept away by the chaos of the crowd. Internal peace becomes stronger than external noise. Silence, which once seemed like absence, becomes direction. And it is at this point that everything connects. Silence does not make us passive. It makes us prepared. It teaches us to respond less with emotion and more with wisdom. It reminds us that Jesus transformed the world not by the volume of his speech, but by the depth of his love. The cross spoke louder in silence than any sermon could speak. He did not face hatred with more hatred. He won by remaining firm, gentle, surrendered. The Christ of the cross teaches us that not all battles are won by arguing, some are won by trusting. Thus, we conclude where we began. Silence is more than the absence of sound. It is space for God to be heard. It is a pause that heals. It is rest that strengthens. It is a discipline that molds character. Silence matures us, deepens us, gives us back what noise stole: focus, peace, spiritual direction. Whoever learns to cultivate quietness discovers within themselves a garden watered by the presence of God, a place where the soul breathes, where the heart aligns, where faith is renewed. And perhaps the greatest invitation of this message is simple. Stop for a few minutes and listen. Not to flee the world, but to return to it more whole. Not to hide from the noise, but to walk above it. May silence be for you a dwelling and a bridge. May you hear the Father's whisper in it and find the wisdom that so many seek in shouts. May God be seen in the interval, felt in the pause, found in the secret. Because when the noise is silent, heaven speaks. We have reached the end of another Bible Sayings for today. May the message inspire and strengthen your faith. We hope this portion of the Word has touched your heart. To continue receiving these daily moments of reflection, subscribe to the channel. Leave your comment about what impacted you the most. And don't forget to share so more lives can be reached by the Word. We are counting on you. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.